Hello, church. You know, in the days leading up to the Passover celebration, Jesus taught his disciples a lot of things. But the closer they got to that celebration, one of the things that he seemed to continually teach them using parables was caring for what they had been given. For using what God had given them. He told parables about talents and about renting vineyards and all these stories that were meant to ask, what are you doing with what I've provided for you already? As he went through each of those stories, I can't help but think that there was a lot of people standing there that figured out that he was talking about them. What did you do with what God's given you? How does this story apply to your life? And during Lent, that's something that I always like us to do. Ask ourselves, what have we done with what God has given us? But today I want us to look at that with the light of where he goes with it. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells a story about judgment. It's interesting that Jesus, who would say, I didn't come to judge the world, though that's far different image than often we think of Jesus, as if he came to bring judgment upon the world. Jesus said, I didn't come to bring judgment on the world. No, I came that it might be saved. Saved from what? Saved from sin? Saved from ourselves, maybe? But why did Jesus come? I came that it might be saved. And how does he do that? He teaches something in Matthew 25 that's a powerful lesson, and one in these days I think we really need to think about. And I'm always fascinated by the reactions in that story. First, he says that the day will come when we'll stand in judgment. And will be put in two places. He uses a parable of saying that one day the day will come when the sheep and the goats are separated, as a herdsman would do, separating out one from the other. And he says that the first group, they're going to be separated because he says, I was hungry and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, you didn't give me a drink. I was naked and you didn't clothe me. I was sick and you didn't care for me. I was in prison and you didn't visit me. And the reaction is, when did that happen? When did I see you hungry and not feed you? Or when was you thirsty and I didn't give you drink? When were you naked and I failed to clothe you? And Jesus' response is pretty simple. As you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. And then he turns to the other group and he looks at them and says, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you came and you visited me. Now, the most fascinating part of this parable of Jesus to me is always that group's response is exactly the same as the first one. When, Lord, did we do that? When did we see you thirsty or hungry or naked or in prison or sick and take care of you? I don't remember that. And Jesus' response was, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. In other words, what's been given to us, what's been presented to us as an opportunity to be what Jesus was to our community. What is it? What are the opportunities that present themselves for us to be like Jesus. And that can be a really challenging time. So I wanted us on this eve of the celebration of the Passover that we'll reflect on, to be asking ourselves on this last day of Lent, what is it? When we've examined ourselves over the last several weeks, what have we seen that said that we had opportunities to touch the lives of others? Which one would we have been? Do we care for the people around us? Or did we look for a reason not to? I think it's a really vital question. And one that each of us, as we prepare to celebrate the offer of grace that we experience in the Last Supper or communion, the meal that Jesus shared with his disciples in celebration of Passover, as we prepare to think about that day, that last chance he had with his disciples, as we prepare ourselves, let's think today about how we're doing in touching the lives of people around us, and which group would we end up with? That's my thought for you today. I hope as you've reflected through Lent that God has taught you amazing things. I hope that in that experience of examining yourselves, like you found places that said, I did pretty well there. But if you're like me, you also found places that you could have done better. And we still need to work on those things. But we have the advantage the disciples didn't have. We get the opportunity to look at this story always through the empty tomb, through the cross, but most of all, we get to look with the advantage of the Holy Spirit moving within us as it teaches us how to be a reflection of Jesus to the world around us. And so, during this season of Lent, I hope you, like I, have been blessed and look forward to what God still has to teach us in the coming days as we continue to be the church together.